Hi and welcome. Thank you for joining me today at Chapter 2 of Johannes Tech-CHECK. Hopefully I will find my new bow today. This is a very current and pressing topic for me, and that's why I thought that I could give you a little insight on my search. Why am I looking for a new bow anyway? When I was studying at the uni, I mostly played on gut strings for some years, and back then I already got the feeling that they bring me much closer to my ideal of sound than anything what I had produced on steel strings. Later, when I was playing in orchestra, I adjusted to the majority of my colleagues which play on steel strings, since gut strings are, especially among cellists, not really customary in orchestra. Now, for the last 4 years, I have only been playing solo and chamber music, and that meant, of course, that I now get to play on what I love the most and find the most beautiful. After some trying out, I came right back to where I was when I was studying, specifically Pirastro's olive strings. These strings do not only offer an incredibly warm and gentle sound, but they also phrase, speak and articulate really great. That complies my way of making music a whole lot more and comes so much closer to my idea of music in general. My situation is the following. Gut strings don't have that direct response, they just need a little more time, and my cello can be a little complicated sound producing wise. That diva put together with the rather slowly responding gut strings often places me in a disadvantageous position, especially in fast movements of chamber music repertoire, compared to my steel playing colleagues. Especially since violins and violas need much less time to respond. I have heard about Arcus bows that they are, particularly concerning response, easy to handle and that they offer a more solistic and bigger sound. If that is really true, and if carbon fiber bows can really sound better or at least as good as wooden bows, that's what I want to find out today. Here we are in the rehearsal room of a big German symphony orchestra. These rooms usually have a very neutral acoustics, meaning that the sound would be influenced neither positively or negatively. By the way, for all the tech nerds out there, I'm using 3 microphones, one large diaphragm microphone, Neumann TLM103 to pick up the sound directly, and 2 of the KM184, also by Neumann, but there are small diaphragm ones to get that little surround sound we have here. In the end, the sound of all 3 microphones will be mixed together, but no reverberation or mastering of any kind will be added. That way, the sound will be as neutral and raw as possible and should give us the best and most conclusive material to judge the bows. Because here's what I can already tell you. The bows are, concerning the handling and therefore playing feel, very different from each other, which at least distracts my attention for the sound while playing.
Beeinflussen lässt und gar nicht wirklich auf den Klang achten kann.
Before testing the Arcus bows, I have asked myself, what's so different about them, also in comparison to other carbon fiber bows? The answer is simply everything. Arcus actually reinvented the bow. A normal carbon fiber bow, like one most of you will have tried at some point, tries to imitate the playing characteristics of a good traditional wooden bow. But the problem of the wooden bow is, in order to exploit the maximum potential of modern strings, it would actually need more hair. That means it would also need a higher rigidity to withstand the higher pressure that comes with more hair. We all know the problem from more flexible bows, for example nice old French ones. When we play with a lot of pressure, the stick will come down to the string quite quickly. Now, if we had a wooden bow with the needed higher rigidity, it would also be thicker because rigidity can only be reached through adding material, making the bow so heavy you could not play with it anymore.
Und damit mehr Gewicht. Und damit würde ein Bogen so schwer werden, dass man damit gar nicht mehr wirklich spielen kann. Arcus ist auf die Idee gekommen, die Bögen hohl zu machen und
Now, Arcus had the idea of producing a hollow stick and use high-density carbon fiber. That makes the stick less flexible. I really can hardly bend it down. Here, in comparison, an old French bow where I can bend the stick almost under the hair, and the Arcus bow is hardly moving an inch. That means it is light, even much lighter than the wooden bows I own and the ones I have played with, much more rigid or stiff, so to say, and has a lot more hair. That's a big advantage, definitely in playability. Now I ask myself, will such a bow sound as beautiful as a wooden
Denn
bow?
auch genauso schön wie ein Holzbogen. Damit wir die Arcusbögen nicht
In order not only to compare the Arcus bows to one another, but also with other ones, wooden bows as well as other carbon fiber bows, I've brought with me 3 bows in addition to the 4 by Arcus.
mitgebracht. Das ist zum einen ein
Here one traditionally made carbon fiber bow for around 1,000 euros.
also schon etwas hochwertigeres. Dann habe ich
Then my so far favorite bow, a modern bow mounted in gold, and the one I specifically picked to match my cello and these strings,
und damals auch zu diesen Seiten ausgesucht.
which makes it the perfect partner and should set the bar for the Arcus bows.
Und sollte damit auch für die Arcusbögen eine absolute Messlatte sein. Und dann haben wir zum dritten einen alten
And as third comparison option, a very old and expensive old French bow by François-Xavier Bazin, which lacks some power in my opinion, but produces a really beautiful sound.
auch ein spannender Vergleich. Und ich beginne jetzt einfach mal mit
I'll start with a carbon fiber bow.
Also ich habe wirklich große Probleme mit dem Bogen im Ton.
I'm having trouble to stay connected to keep the tone stable. I find it produces a bright sound, which can be good and will be interesting to listen to on the recording. But I think it does not really let my cello sound very nice. Let's try some spiccato.
Das ist ziemlich einfach.
That's quite easy, but I still have the feeling that the bow doesn't really connect to the string. It produces easily rapid off strings, but it's not really a good fit for these gut strings. It's probably much better than a wooden bow for the same price, but in my opinion it's not an alternative to a good wooden bow if you are having serious aspirations.
Aber ich finde, er ist nicht wirklich eine Alternative, wenn man ernsthaft spielen möchte. Als nächsten Bogen probiere ich mal den Franzosen. Der müsste
Next I'm going to try the French one, and I expect it to represent a real counterpart.
Du spielst ja nur auf dem Holz. Furchtbar.
I am immediately playing on the wood of the stick.
ich finde es frappierend.
This is striking to hear how little chances I have to produce a real forte, let alone fortissimo. I am playing with the wood on the strings all the time. That produces that zzz sound. The bow can make the most beautiful piano, but I can't use it for solistic purposes.
Einfach nicht gebrauchen kann.
Next up is my modern gold-mounted bow, which I use for all of the repertoire, maybe except for Baroque pieces, but for all chamber music and solo concertos. With this bow I have now played a real forte for the first time without bringing the wood to the string, which by the way happens even with this bow sometimes. Still I think it produces a high quality and beautiful sound. I'm curious about the recording. It connects much better to the string and even produced more sound in the soutien or spiccato. This bow should really establish a benchmark for the Arcus bows. It is very agile and fast, but I still hold the feeling that I can't get the right grip of these strings when I play fast passages to produce a big and full-bodied sound.
Ein bisschen das Problem, dass ich nicht wirklich bei schnellen Noten in die Saite komme und einen richtig großen, voluminösen Ton erzeugen kann. So, jetzt kommen wir endlich zu den Arcus-Bögen.
Finally, we come to the Arcus bows. When looking at them, you can spot the first difference. There are two with an octagonal stick and two with a round stick. I personally prefer, at least with wooden bows, the ones with round sticks, or rather, I have made the experience that I liked the round stick bows better than the octagonal ones. That's why I will try the T7 now.
T7 mit einer runden Stange. Also der erste Eindruck ist, finde ich, sehr deutlich.
My first impression is a very clear one. The playing feel is very different. I have to adjust to that, because the stick won't bend, and because I'm used to more delicate bows. The Arcus bow is a little longer than a normal wooden bow, which makes a huge difference. That's about 1.5 centimeters.
1,5 Zentimeter würde ich denken. Die Stange ist auch dicker.
The stick is slightly thicker, and as I said, I'm used to more slender bows, but it's really phenomenal how much louder I can play with this and how much more sound comes from my cello. Incredible!
Wahnsinn. Und vor allem, es wird nicht einfach nur lauter, sondern der Ton wird auch breiter.
It almost is like the tone is not only louder, but somehow broader. It's not as forceful as laser, but really opens up the sound. Really great. It's not that eager to leave the string. It works, but it's a little harder than with my gold-mounted bow, for example. But the big difference is, when you get it to play spiccato, it still produces sound and not only a somehow flat noise. But the big difference is, when you get it to play spiccato, it still produces sound and not only a somehow flat noise. Next up is the M7, again a bow with a round stick. I have to say, I like this bow even better. It leaves the string much easier, it bounces more easily, and in comparison to the traditional carbon fiber bow and the wooden bows, it produces a lot of sound, a real sound rather than a flat noise, meaning the tone, which will spread throughout the room when I play sautiller, will be much more sustainable and loud.
Wird sehr viel tragfähiger und lauter sein.
Generally, I already have to say, after playing these two bows, I am reaching my own limits here. Arcus says that since the bows are built very light, the bowing arm won't be strained as much and won't tire as soon. But now I have to say, quite the contrary. I could never use all my power when playing with wooden bows. I always thought that also my cello wouldn't take it, that maybe the sound would collapse, but no. It is the bow that doesn't withstand the power. And with this bow I can grip the strings as much as I want, as much as my muscles can, and I seem to be nowhere near the limit. I feel like I will have to do some bodybuilding to be able to do justice to these bows. And I'm really excited to hear what this instrument will produce then. I'm already very curious about the recording. The difference really couldn't be any bigger.
Wie größer nicht sein kann. Ich hätte niemals gedacht, dass
I would never have thought that this was possible. So let's go to the octagonal bows. That's a P7 now.
Dieser Bogen ist jetzt nochmal
This
für mich
bow
ein
marks
Stein.
again an improvement. It is incredibly easy to handle. It stays very much connected to the string, keeps the tone stable. That's what you always hear about great French bows, that they smoothly stick to the string and draw out the tone and form it. That's the case here, and even more. Playing legato, playing piano is so nice, is such a lot of fun. And the range of colors I can produce is really wide, many more than I get from the wooden bows.
Bei den Holzbögen. Arcus verspricht, dass diese Bögen weniger Kraft benötigen.
Arcus promise you will need less power to play on their bows, and here I see what they mean. I play as loud as I would with a wooden bow, and I don't need as much power, so I will get tired later than usual. But again, I need a lot more training to do this bow justice, meaning if I would exercise more and had more power, also in my left hand to push down the strings, I would be able to produce a whole lot more of sound. And that is what we ultimately are looking for. We are purchasing the most expensive instruments because they offer us many more possibilities in sound and colors. But the difference this bow makes with that cello in comparison with my rather expensive gold-mounted bow is huge. It's actually beyond price.
So, als nächsten Bogen, als letzten Bogen haben wir...
Lastly, we have the S7, again with an octagonal stick and a little unconventional frog.
konventionellen Frosch. Auch dieser Bogen ist phänomenal. Die einzige Schwachstelle, die es jetzt eigentlich noch gibt, bin ich.
This bow is phenomenal too. The only weak spot left am I. Many of the weaknesses which I thought my cello had were actually to be found within the bows. And I am not able to exploit the full potential of these new bows yet. I don't have the power or the control. But that's no surprise, since I have never played with such equipment before and my skills reach the limits where the wooden bows reached theirs. These bows offer such a variety of possibilities in playing piano, forte, legato, spiccato.
Ich hätte nie für möglich gehalten, dass der Unterschied so groß sein würde.
I would have never thought that the difference would be this big. I thought that it would maybe be less exhausting, maybe the response would be more direct. I expected a little more volume of sound.
Spielen nicht im selben Stadion. Die machen noch nicht mal denselben
These
Sport.
bows are not only playing in different leagues, it's a completely different ball game.
Mein Teil bin relativ sicher jetzt hier am Instrument, welchen
I'm quite certain to have found my favorite here, which is the S7, because the sound appears more warm to me. But both the P7 and the S7 were great, and I will probably choose between those two. They give such a variety of possibilities I have never experienced before, not even with a tourte or a picquet.
Now, after recording a 1-hour Piazzolla program and a live stream with some Bach and modern music, I get the chance to get used to the bows a little bit better. It just needs some time.
But now I have the feeling that I have a little more power and stability in my right hand, and I can benefit a lot more from the endless possibilities of this bow. On the other hand, you might ask if I discovered some negative aspects of the bows.
Well, there are carbon fiber bows which are designed to look like wood. So when you use one of those in a concert, nobody can see that you're actually using a carbon fiber bow, which I think is pretty cool. Thinking of the conventional carbon fiber bow, which is made to imitate the best wooden bows, I can follow this logic. But now where I know that the Arcus bows are so much better than any wooden bow, why should they look like wood? I mean, have you ever seen a Rolls-Royce designed to look like a Fiat?
And with an open mind for innovation, one has to admit that these bows are very, very good looking. Another thing, but of course a very personal problem I have with a bow, is that the bow is a little thicker than a wooden one. Because of a nerve suffering I have, I'm forced to use a slim silicone drain. These are extra suitable made for a diameter of a wooden cello bow. And that is not fitting to an Arcus bow, so I have to look for a replacement and didn't find one so far. The one major problem one could have with an Arcus bow is the missing vibrations of the bow. Especially when you play in an orchestra, you often have to play so quietly that you don't hear the result of your playing. Or you play so loud in a fortissimo that you also can't hear yourself. In this situation, it's very useful to feel the vibrations of the string across the bow. Without these, it must feel a bit like playing deaf and blind at the same time. But I am sure that there's a way to cope with this, and I heard from orchestra colleagues that they got used to it quite soon.
It's just important to know that you will need quite some time to cope with an Arcus bow because they're so different, and that it's not easy to switch back to a normal wooden bow immediately. But now where I've played mine for 2 weeks, I just don't see any reason why you should. I for sure will buy mine next week and maybe upgrade to a gold-mounted version, the S9, after Corona, where I hopefully earn a little bit more money again. Thanks for watching my Tech Check. See you next time in Chapter 3, where it's all about
Cases.